Imagine this, it's Saturday afternoon, and four massive games are happening at the exact same time. The Premier League match you promised your friends you'd watch, the NFL game you never miss, the NBA playoff game everyone's talking about, the UFC fight that might define a fighter's entire career. Before last week, that was impossible. You had to choose. Pick one screen, one game, one story, miss everything else. But Apple TV 4K just shipped a feature called Multiview that lets you watch all four simultaneously in pristine 4K quality on the same television. No awkward split-screen boxes, no stopping and switching feeds, no missing the goal because you were checking your phone for another game's score. All four feeds running live, audio control in your hands, synced to the exact same moment. Four complete stories playing out in front of you at once. This isn't some gimmick buried in settings. It's the thing that finally makes cable sports packages feel completely, utterly obsolete. Here's the wildest part. Apple didn't even make a huge announcement. They didn't call a press conference. They just slipped it into the Apple TV 4K software update, and now millions of people have access to a feature that cable companies have been charging premium prices for decades. So what actually happened? And why does this moment matter so much more than just a device feature? Understand why Multiview is such a big deal. You've got to understand how trapped sports fans have been for the last 30 years. Cable changed everything in the 1990s. Before that, you got whatever your local broadcaster decided to show. But cable promised choice, ESPN, Fox Sports, specialized channels for every sport. The trade-off, you still had to choose, one game per screen, one feed at a time. Then streaming arrived. Suddenly you had ESPN plus Apple TV plus Peacock, each with their own sports content spread across different channels and apps. But the problem got worse, not better. Now you needed 4 different subscriptions, 4 different apps, 4 different logins. Want to watch multiple games? Grab your phone, open another app, half watch while the first game plays on the TV. Misplays constantly. The cable industry basically shrugged. They understood that their power came from forcing you to watch one feed at a time, because bundling is what they sold. The premium sports package wasn't about giving you better games. It was about making you pay more for the privilege of having more games available, even though you could still only watch one. Apple's move breaks that entire model. For the first time, the technology doesn't force you to choose anymore. The screen doesn't limit you. Your hardware doesn't limit you. There's no bundled package holding you back. And that's what makes this genuinely dangerous for cable. So how does Multiview actually work? It's simpler than you'd think, but the engineering behind it is honestly pretty clever. When you enable Multiview on Apple TV 4K, the system doesn't just slap 4 video feeds next to each other and hope for the best. That would destroy picture quality, overload the network, and probably crash the whole thing. Instead, Apple's done something more sophisticated. The Apple TV 4K has a chip, the A15 Bionic processor. That's the same chip powering the iPhone 15. That processor handles what's called hardware video decoding. What that means in plain English, it's like having a translator for each video feed. The translator takes the compressed video stream coming from ESPN or Apple TV Plus or wherever, decodes it in real time, and displays it at full resolution. But instead of decoding one feed, the A15 can decode 4 of them simultaneously. Then there's the audio layer. Each of your 4 feeds carries its own audio track, commentary from the game, ambient crowd noise, all of it. Instead of mixing them into one confusing mess, Multiview lets you select which game's audio you actually want to hear. You're watching 4 games, but you're listening to only one. The clever part, your internet connection doesn't actually have to be 4 times faster. Streaming video is smart. It adjusts quality based on your network speed. Multiview just demands that Apple TV 4K prioritizes different regions of the screen. It's dividing up your existing bandwidth smarter, not asking for 4 times as much. All of this happens without noticeable lag. Let's talk about who actually benefits from this, because it's not just sports nerds. First, fantasy sports drafts. If you play fantasy football or fantasy soccer, draft day is chaos. You're trying to track your league's picks, watch the actual games for injury news, check real-time scoring on your phone, and somehow pay attention to the 4 or 5 games that have key players. With Multiview, you watch the 4 most important games simultaneously on your TV while your draft window lives on your phone. You stop missing crucial moments because you're scrolling. Second, families. Parents with kids in multiple sports leagues already live this nightmare. Your oldest has a soccer match at 2 p.m., your youngest has basketball at 2:30, and they're in different towns. You've probably just accepted that you're going to miss one of them, or spend half the game driving between fields. Multiview on a tablet or iPad means you could theoretically watch multiple kids playing in real time. Third, international sports fans. The Premier League plays at noon, the Championship plays at 3 p.m., Saraya plays at 5 p.m., and La Liga plays later. If you follow European football, you're juggling multiple live games across the afternoon. Multiview means you can actually follow them all without missing dramatic moments. Fourth, sports bars. This is where Multiview gets genuinely interesting from a business perspective. Instead of having a dozen TV screens all over the bar, a bar owner could theoretically use 2 or 3 Apple TV 4K units to show every game at once. Cost goes down, flexibility goes up, the whole equation changes. The common thread. Every single one of these people has been fighting technology that forced them to choose. So where does Multiview actually sit compared to the alternatives? Let's start with cable, a premium sports cable package, the kind that gives you ESPN, Fox Sports, NFL Red Zone, everything, costs around $250 a month, sometimes more. That's $3,000 a year just for the privilege of watching sports. Multiview, you need an Apple TV 4K at $199, and subscriptions to whatever services you want, usually somewhere between $50 to $150 a month, depending on what sports you follow. The math is dramatically cheaper, and you don't have a contract locking you in for 2 years. Then there's the 4 devices approach. People who already throw multiple tablets, phones, and laptops around their living room to watch different games. The problem? You're juggling audio from all of them. You're splitting your attention across different rooms, and your internet bandwidth gets split 4 ways, degrading video quality on each device. Multiview uses the same bandwidth more efficiently and gives you one beautiful, coherent viewing experience. Picture-in-picture, which exists on some streaming apps. That gives you one main game at full size and a tiny window for a second game. You're still not really watching both. You're watching one and half watching the other. Multiview gives all 4 games equal real estate. All 4 are watchable, all 4 matter. And here's what cable never had: switching. You can flick between which game's audio you're listening to with a button press. You can rearrange the feeds on your screen. You control the experience. Cable gave you no control. It gave you bundles and took your money. That's why Multiview isn't just better technology. It's a fundamentally different relationship with sports viewing. This is where things get genuinely interesting from a bigger picture perspective, because Multiview isn't actually about watching sports. It's about Apple's long-term strategy to kill cable TV entirely. For decades, cable companies survived because they had distribution. They own the pipe. If you wanted sports, you needed their cable box, their monthly bill, their infrastructure. Sports rights holders loved cable because it was the only way to reach a massive audience at once. The whole ecosystem was built on scarcity. Limited channel space meant limited access meant high prices. Streaming broke scarcity. Anyone with an internet connection can access content. Rights holders realized they could distribute their own content directly without cable's middleman. But streaming still had a problem: fragmentation. You needed 10 different apps, 10 different subscriptions, 10 different logins. It was so annoying that cable still made sense by comparison. Multiview solves fragmentation, at least on one device. Now you don't need cable's bundle because you can just subscribe to the 3 or 4 services with the sports you actually care about and watch them all at once. The cable bundle becomes instantly obsolete, but here's where it gets darker for traditional pay TV. Apple has more leverage than any streamer. Apple TV 4K isn't just a device. It's the hub of someone's entertainment experience. Once Apple owns that relationship, Apple controls what services get featured, what gets recommended, what gets bundled next. Apple could theoretically launch an Apple Sports bundle, paying rights holders for exclusive access, offering it at a price point between premium cable and picking individual subscriptions, and completely dominate sports streaming within 2 years. Cable's worst nightmare isn't Multiview itself. It's the ecosystem that Multiview enables. Alright, so if you've got an Apple TV 4K, here's how to actually make Multiview work for you. First requirement, you need Apple TV 4K, the newer model from 2022 or later. If you've got an older Apple TV, Doesn't work. Go buy the newer one or don't. Second requirement, you need internet bandwidth. The general rule is that each game feed requires around 5 to 8 megabits per second, depending on quality. 4 feeds means roughly 20 to 32 megabits per second. If your internet plan is faster than 50 megabits, you're probably fine. If you're on your parents' rural broadband, Multiview's not happening. Once you've got the hardware and the bandwidth, the software side is stupid easy. You open whatever app you want, ESPN+, Apple TV+, whatever, and in the live events section you'll see a Multiview button. Tap it. The screen splits into 4 zones. You can then add whichever games you want into each zone by opening the app again, finding the game, and dropping it into a free zone. Each zone gets its own feed, its own quality, its own audio track. Audio control is where it gets fun. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see audio buttons for each zone. Tap whichever one you want to listen to. You watch 4, you listen to 1. If a massive play happens in Zone 3 while you're listening to Zone 1, you just tap the audio button and suddenly you're hearing the roar of the crowd from Zone 3. You can rearrange the zones by pressing and holding, dragging them around the screen to whatever layout you prefer. Some people put their favorite game in the biggest window. Others go full grid. It's customizable. One warning, you can't pause individual feeds. If you hit pause, all 4 pause. It's live TV, so everything moves together. So here's what matters about this moment. It's not actually about sports, even though it looks like it is. For 100 years, scarcity has been the foundation of the media industry. Radio, television, cable, every step of the way distribution was limited. Only so many channels, only so much space. That scarcity created value. It made content expensive. It made bundles necessary. It gave carriers absolute power over what people could watch and when. Multiview is the symptom of scarcity finally dying. For the first time, you're not choosing between 4 games because the technology forced you to. You're choosing because you're physically incapable of watching more than 4 games at once. The limitation is you, not the system. That changes everything about how media gets made, how it gets distributed, how it gets paid for. Cable companies built their entire business model on controlled scarcity. Amazon and Apple and all the streamers are building on the opposite assumption: unlimited abundance, instant access, and the belief that consumers will pay for convenience and experience rather than channels. Multiview isn't the only piece of that change, but it's a watershed moment. It's the first time in decades that a consumer-facing feature has made the old model literally obsolete overnight. If you've got an Apple TV 4K, go try Multiview this week. This is what the future of media looks like. No more choosing, no more waiting, no more channels dictating what you can watch and when. Just the games you want, whenever you want them, all at once. Follow for daily AI news and tech breakthroughs that are reshaping how we live, work, and play.